It's just going to revitalise the club as a whole, isn't it? We saw the party atmosphere in the game against Blackburn. The fans were bouncing.
Under the new ownership, they can really start to fulfil their potential as a football club, like they did 7 or 8 years ago when the Allams took over.
Derby fans are, at the moment, waking up each morning thinking, I'm going to have a football club to support in a month's time.
That can happen to any football club in a championship. I know it becomes a cliche, but there's a lot of issues surrounding Derby that will impact other teams.
They are the best attacking team the Championship has ever seen, hasn't it? The stats prove it. The amount of goals they've scored prove it. You just have to watch them to see how ridiculously good they are. Taking Coventry from effectively a side in League Two to on the edge of the playoffs in the Championship is a magnificent return.
I think he deserves another go at a top club that will back their manager.
The job he did in transforming Derby was sensational. Absolutely sensational. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Stopwatch. It's the Championship show with a little twist. It's 5 topics, 2-minute timer, 2 hosts, Ryan and Justin from the second tier. Let's get right into it. Justin, let's start with a feel-good story, shall we? We haven't had too many in the Championship this season, but we've got a nice one for once. It's the end of the Allen reign at Hull City. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you think is in the future for the Tigers?
Yeah, obviously happy for Hull City fans to see the back of the Allen tenure. As you say, it's been a long time coming. I think the club's been up for sale for longer than the Allams have been in charge. That's what it feels like anyway. It's a really good time for Hull City, and I think that they're a team that needs investment. They've got a really good academy. They've got a good group of players now. They've got a good fan base as well, and a good stadium. They're a club that needs to be fighting a lot higher than where they are at the moment. So I think under the new ownership, they can really start to fulfil their potential as a football club, like they did 7 or 8 years ago when the Allams first took over.
I'm absolutely delighted for Hull fans. I remember when there was the whole name-changing saga and Hull fans were saying Hull City till we die. And I think the most senior Allen said, well, they can die as long as they let the others enjoy the football, which just goes to show what kind of people these are that we're dealing with here. So I'm delighted that they're out of the club now. It means Hull have got a new future ahead where we'll have hopefully an exciting future as well, where they can bring in some new talent from abroad. I've seen them linked with plenty of players from abroad. And it's just going to revitalise the club as a whole, isn't it? We saw the party atmosphere in the game against Blackburn. Fans were bouncing around the stadium with the idea that this is the end of the Allen era. And now I think Hull fans have got a sense of optimism, something that they haven't had for quite some time, Justin.
Yeah, spot on. It's that sense of optimism and that injection of life back into the football club that it needs. And it's like getting a new car. You don't necessarily need a new car. You just need to wash the current one, and that's what it feels like for Hull at the moment. It's getting a good clean and a good sort out, which is it can revitalise a club, as you say.
Absolutely, Justin. Can we have the next question, please?
Given the situation at Derby, does the league have a responsibility to help the Rams' plight?
Absolutely. I think other fans of clubs should be looking at this thinking we need to do our bit here to help another football club. Imagine if this was your football club that was in the situation Derby fans are in right now. Derby fans are, at the moment, waking up each morning thinking, I'm going to have a football club to support in a month's time. And that is really, really scary. And it could happen to any other club in the division. Coronavirus, ridiculous spending in the Championship has hit clubs hard. And now there are other clubs who could very well be in a similar situation very, very soon. So now it's time to do their bit to save a massive club in Derby County. And whether it's signing petitions, contacting MPs to try and get their support for Derby, there's a lot fans can do. But as long as they show solidarity with Derby fans, I think that's the at least minimum thing they can do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, from the outside looking in, you disagree with that statement about giving other clubs and fans responsibility to help Derby. Not necessarily the case, but then you look into the situation around Derby, the circumstances they find themselves in, and what they're currently under, and why they're currently under those circumstances. That can happen to any football club in a Championship. I know it becomes a cliche, but there's a lot of issues surrounding Derby that will impact other teams. There are a lot of obviously legal cases that could set a precedent for other football clubs to be at risk of those said legal cases. So helping Derby in this situation is important because, as I say, the circumstances surrounding Derby could affect other teams. So I think, just as you say, showing solidarity is the very least that they can do. But signing petitions and getting their local MPs to show support as well is another important step.
When it's happening to Derby County, we're talking about one of the top 5 biggest clubs outside the Premier League. It can happen to anyone. So absolutely, fans need to support this as much as they can. Justin, after another 6 goals in midweek and 19 in the space of 7 days, is this Fulham attack the best we've ever seen in the second tier?
Well, they've just scored 70 goals and we're 26 games into the season. They've got 20 games left. They're going to surpass 100. That seems a given. And they do it with a certain swagger and style as well, which is just gloating, if you ask me. But at the same time, they boast the best striker. They boast the best playmaker in Harry Wilson, or the best West winger. However you seem fit to describe him, he just creates goals, and that's essentially what's benefiting Fulham at the moment. So yeah, I do think it's the best attacking side we're seeing. There are certain teams that spring to mind. Watford under Jokanovic, for example, were one. Fulham under Jokanovic were another one, but this one just pips it. They are just so good. They drive at 100 miles an hour every single game.
Yeah, they've scored more goals after 26 games than any team ever in Championship history, which I think when you've got that stat, it's hard to argue that they don't have the best attack ever, isn't it? I think if you're talking about the Fulham attack, you're talking about the whole team, aren't you? Not just the front 3, for example. If you talking about the front 3 man for man, then there are others who you could maybe argue, although it is hard to argue when you've got Alexander Mitrovic, who may very well be the highest scoring Championship striker ever. I mean, I say very well, it's looking very likely at this point, isn't it? And then you've got Harry Wilson, who's been chipping in. He doesn't get enough praise for my money for the amount he's actually contributed to this Fulham side this season. They are the best attacking team the Championship has ever seen, hasn't it? The stats prove it. The amount of goals they've scored prove it. You just have to watch them to see how ridiculously good they are. They're just entertaining to watch and absolutely brutal at the same time. Clinical, but also creating chances for fun is absolutely frightening. Justin, what's the next question?
Who is the most underrated boss in the Championship right now?
Massive question. That is a massive question. And a few names to spring to mind. Of course, there were loads of good managers in the Championship right now. I think the one who stands out for me the most is probably Mark Robins at Coventry, who doesn't get enough credit for my money for the job that he has done there, taking Coventry from effectively a side in League Two to on the edge of the playoffs in the Championship is a magnificent return. They've had all the turmoil about where they've been playing as well. They've had to do it with a limited budget at the same time. Mark Robins, compared to other managers in the Championship as well, does not get enough credit for my money. And that's maybe because he's had other goes at Championship level before. I don't know if that's played a part, but I just don't understand why he doesn't get more praise, Justin. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I agree. The rise of Coventry under Mark Robins has been special. Tactically, they've been very good this season. Obviously, took Fulham. They beat Fulham, who we were just talking about being the best attacking team in the division. So that shows something. But the same reasons you mentioned Mark Robins, I'm going to say Nathan Jones. I think Nathan Jones is a manager who, as you say, took Luton from a League Two team not too long ago. We're a non-league side, but he's taken them from a League Two team to on the edge of the playoffs with a short spell at Stoke in between. And I say returns never go well, but this one's been even better probably than the first one, than the first spell under at Luton for Nathan Jones. And the circumstances that he's got at Luton don't spend a lot of money, free transfers, nominal fees being paid, and he's got players playing with such style and swagger and hard work as well. That's the key principle here. I think Nathan Jones takes the plaudits for me, but I can see why you'd edge towards Mark Robins as well.
The only reason I didn't say Nathan Jones is because I think he gets a lot of praise. So he's not maybe as underrated as other managers, but without a doubt, a fantastic manager. And you're completely right. Luton, Nathan Jones just fits, doesn't it? It's like a perfect jigsaw puzzle piece. And he is leading them right to the top for my money. Just in second tier retro, favorite time of the week. And it's similar to the topic we've just had, actually, and dipping into the archives. Who is the single most underrated boss in Championship history?
It was a really difficult one to find, actually. Normally, a name pops to my head straight away when these come up, but I really struggled with this one. But I'm going to edge towards Alex Neil. And there might be Preston fans that disagree, but you look at what he did at Norwich in such a short space of time, obviously taking them into the Premier League via the playoffs. He had a good squad, but he had to get them clicking, and they played really good football as well. Didn't quite work out in the Premier League, but they still kept hold of those principles that got them there. And then at Preston, for my money, that club was just lacking a little bit of investment. That's what's held them back essentially over the last couple of years. So for me, I'm going to edge towards Alex Neil, and I think he deserves another go at a top club that will back their manager, because he's got all the tools to get a team back into the Premier League.
I agree. I really rate Neil as a manager. I think it's surprising, really, for me that he hasn't been given another crack at Championship level, because he is a top manager. You only have to look at his record at Norwich. Preston, he did as good as he could with the resources that he had, and I don't think many other managers would have done much better than he did there. So yeah, Alex Neil for me is probably, I'd agree with that, one of the most underrated managers in Championship history. Mine is a bit controversial, and I think there may be fans of other clubs who may say differently, but I've gone for Steve McClaren. Now, of course, remember how he did for England. We all know about that. We don't need to go into too much detail about that. And his spell at Forest wasn't particularly good either. But the job he did in transforming Derby was sensational, absolutely sensational. And we've got to remember this was before Derby had money as well. So he's taken a side that didn't have much money and transformed him into arguably the best team never get promoted from the Championship. And that led to Derby being the promotion contenders that they were for the next 6-7 seasons in the Championship. He did a phenomenal job, but because he is Steve McClaren, seen as a bit of a joke figure, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves for me. Did a decent job as well initially when he went back to Derby, and also did a decent job at QPR. QPR fans may disagree with that, but he did better than a lot of them were expecting. Didn't have much resources there. They were still trying to find their way after spending millions of pounds from the Premier League era, but did a decent job there. And I think some QPR fans may say actually he wasn't too bad. So Steve McClaren for me, someone who I think probably does deserve another crack at Championship level. I don't think he probably will, though, because he is Steve McClaren. And there we go. Episode 18 of The Stopwatch. 18th birthday, Justin. The Stopwatch is now an adult. I feel like a proud dad. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, especially who you think is the most underrated boss in the Championship. Drop us a like if you've enjoyed, and please subscribe for more content like this. We've been the Second Tier Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Second Tier Pod. I'm Ryan Dilkswan. That's Justin Peach 27. And thank you for watching.